Question for you. Have you ever wondered if you're supposed to meet someone, or maybe even you thought of the fact that maybe you're not meant to be with someone or meant to meet anyone? If these kinds of thoughts or more have crossed your mind, we can discuss this today with my beautiful guest. And I see this emerge a lot because I had that type of thinking when I was dating, and I was pretty poor at it. There were a few thoughts in particular that were holding me back, so to speak. One of which I had this deep-rooted thought that I thought maybe I'm not meant to meet someone because of my weight. But also there was a part of me that was thinking that there was some great karmic reason, like that maybe it just wasn't meant to be for me. It wasn't part of my gizmat, my karma, my fate, call it whatever you want. I had all these deep-rooted beliefs, and it was only when I re-examined those beliefs and started to reframe them, change them, rewrite those beliefs that things began to change. So I thought this would be a beautiful topic of discussion with my amazing guest today, and we can delve into all things of the like as well. Welcome everyone to the Feel Inspired podcast with my incredible guest today, the lovely Smita. And before I introduce her, which I'm going to do in a second, we have a little bit of a tradition on my podcast. We've got my Spark card, so I'm going to ask you a question from the deck. So here we go. Let me just give these a little bit of a shuffle first. I probably should have shuffled them beforehand, but here we go. Right, okay. Whenever you're ready, just say stop.
Stop.
Alrighty. The question is, this is always a good one. What's the most challenging or difficult thing you've ever been through?
Oh gosh, where to begin?
I know, right? Easy subject to start with.
I tell you, the most funny enough, it happens to be around the theme of relationships. The most difficult and challenging thing that I've really had to focus on and work on and transform in my life. And I can tell you, hand on heart, it's so transformed now. But it took something because it wasn't obvious. And that was the patterns of relationships that I had, that I was consistently getting. So the relationship in terms of, me with a man, but there were also patterns, specific patterns where I had certain things happen in my life, whether it was with friends or whether it was with relatives or whatever that was, but so separately, I took them all on, and over the years, and I have really gone very, very, very much to the depth, to the roots, and that includes, and I'm going to tell you, some people are going to go, I don't believe in that, but it's what it is. That includes working at the level of the mind, working at the level of psychology, working at the level of physical, how I show up, but actually working at the level where I couldn't find the answers in any of those areas, to go back in time and space before I took birth in this body, so that my Jivatman, my soul, where it's been on its journey along the way over many, many eons, and what it was that I had accumulated as beliefs, as experiences, as traumas that were unresolved. And so for me, those have been the most challenging and difficult themes to deal with in personal relationships, and especially when it comes to a one-to-one relationship. So dealing with whether the traumas were coming from this lifetime that kept me from being able to trust that I could really be in a relationship, like somebody, I could really trust somebody, to take care of me. I'm very self-sufficient, absolutely, like financially and so on. That was how I set myself up because of this thing of trust. And yet, when you're in a relationship, you can't be intimate unless you can trust a person, you can trust the man or the woman that you're with, or whoever you might be with. And so those issues led me back in time in some cases where the answers were not present here. So that challenge, I would say, was the deepest. And who knows what will come up in the future. But for me, that was really
I love that.
something to work with.
I'm sure you're familiar with the work of Dr. David R. Hawkins and
Yes.
what he does in terms of past life and helping people uncover some of their deeper rooted challenges. And there's a beautiful story that I came across recently, and I've heard of it before, and then I saw it on social media, and then I went back and found the original source. And it's where he's working with two separate patients, both arriving at his practice. He's speaking to the gentleman first of all, and the gentleman, when he took him through this past life regression type of therapy that he does. And there was an experience he had where he remembers being captured by some soldiers. This was, we're talking thousands of years ago. And he remembers looking at his daughter and being pulled away from his daughter, and then him being killed in front of her. So then he's speaking to the next person, the lady, and she remembers an experience where she talks about her father being pulled away from her by these soldiers and being killed. So obviously putting two and two together, he realized that these two souls, call it what you will, karmically intertwined. And he decided to do nothing about it. He just thought, I wonder. So these two individuals had crossed paths in his practice, but it never really said hello properly or anything. But it just so happens that they were at an airport, and they bumped into each other, and they kind of said, oh, I think I recognize you. We both go to see Dr. Hawkins. And it was through that conversation then they realized that they had this experience, and that through various sessions he'd established that they had actually been connected through several births, not just one, and in very different guises. Sometimes they were husband and wife, sometimes they were father and daughter, in all different bodies and roles, but they'd been through many different lives together. And when you mentioned that about your experience of going back to the root, and sometimes when I coach people as well, I realize there's sometimes things far deeper, but that doesn't mean you necessarily always have to go back.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you can absolutely start afresh with a real new perspective, and start with almost like a ground zero. Just begin from
So
scratch.
I think a lot depends on where somebody is in their life, and not everybody has deep traumas necessarily. Sometimes they're just like your mom gave you a cheese sandwich when you wanted a ham sandwich or something. It's so so insignificant, and you made it mean something. But as human beings, we will find reason to be unhappy, and so it doesn't have to go that deep. In my case, it was just so many interconnected situations, but I wanted to go to the depth of sort of what would set me free to really be and choose from a place of absolute freedom, a future that was never going to happen as I knew myself at that point. And what was driving me, I think, was this incredible deep desire to connect. I have that, I feel like my soul brought me here this time to really connect very deeply with people, but in the most authentic of ways. And to be able to have that level of connection, you do need to be clear of, your stuff. And if there is stuff there, and we all do have it.
Yeah.
And I think we all have different levels and layers. And let's not forget that not everybody wants to have that sacred union as a relationship.
Yeah.
A lot of people are very happy with having a partner in life that they do the regular things with, have a family, get married, have a family, have children, raise them, go to work. For a lot of people, that is just what life is for, and they're very, very content with that. And I think that's why you have to be clear about what it is you want in a relationship. So let me not preempt your questions too much. But
No, it's okay. Again, that's really ironic that you talk about that, because again, I was just coaching this individual, and that was where this conversation led to, because there was a stumbling block at 5 months, and from unpicking it, it just stemmed very simply from this individual not knowing what they wanted, because they couldn't articulate it. And that's how I sort of put it to people. Can you tell me, as if I was a 5-year-old, what it is you want? And if you're not able to articulate that, that is half the problem, because you're not clear. You simply haven't just made it clear for yourself what it is you want. So let's put some context on this as well, because I haven't actually fully introduced you yet. So let's do the introduction. I'm going to shorten this ever so slightly, because I want you to do most of it, actually. But I just want to say that you are a devoted long-time yogi and certified teacher of yoga, and you are continuing to inspire thousands through your best-selling Karma and Diamonds trilogy. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that. And it's a gripping real-life journey of self-discovery across continents, lifetimes, blending personal transformation, romance, and deep spiritual insights. And you also do guided meditations via your self-discovery channel. But first, 2 questions then. One is, who is Smita? who are you? So tell everyone about who you are and about your Trilogy book and what it's about and how your work began. And you have blown up quite a lot on social media as well. Actually, I see all your videos come up in my feed, and there's been a few interesting topics that I've seen particularly come up. Like there was one in particular which I think was quite a poignant one, and it was very popular. I know it had like thousands and thousands of likes. It started off with the question, how to know if you're in your final berth. So we could talk a little bit about that as well. So please introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. So social media has been doing, we've been focusing quite a lot, and YouTube has gone like in 5 months. We've gone from 5,500 to 171 right now.
Wow.
1,000 today. And it's escalating. And I think it's really, really a case of consistency and just letting go of the internal dialogue and just showing up, doing the work. But yeah, who am I? It's a really good question. It's always a question that's hard for people to answer for themselves. I actually see myself on a journey here, and I am here basically to learn and soak up everything that I can. That would explain my kind of CV, as it were, my biography, because I started working very young, started in a corporate at 20. And prior to that, I was already running shops, with maybe, 30 people working for me that were mostly double my age. But what that led me into was understanding, really, the driver was the fact that I just loved working, in the sense that I had this talent for selling, for developing business, for just all of that, which I started to notice when I was working in shoe shops as a Saturday girl, and in holidays. And then that led me into technology. So I've always been at the leading edge of technology, whatever that might be at the time. So if you think about currently, we have AI. So back in the day, we had various ranges of that, starting from mobile right the way into when India started to bring out its IT, which was very little known at the time. So I was one of the first, very, very first, but of two small companies. Well, one was a large company, but with a small presence here in the UK, and the other one was just a startup. So I joined the startup, and we were the very, very first people to create a paradigm in how to talk about outsourcing. Doing your IT work remotely, and then creating that as a paradigm, and then actually having India be a part of that. And at the time when people thought they worked in sweatshops and whatever. So we actually created that to being a mainstream, even today, as being the kind of strategic mainstream of any large company's budget. And so that took something. So the largest deal that I won, and because it was so huge, we did it as part of a consortium, was $1 billion.
Wow.
And it's today still one of the largest, in fact, one of the two largest in the space of infrastructure, IT infrastructure and outsourcing. So I've always been at that sort of side. But because I started so young, and because I had a lot of things that went on in my personal life since I was a child, let's just say it gave me a lot of things to deal with as I grew up. If I were to be happy in life and if I were to be really successful, I got into meditation very early on. I saw my dad meditate. I saw my dad stand on his head virtually every day as a child because he practiced yoga, and I started to do the same. And I taught myself to meditate in order that I could get some questions answered that I was desperate to have answered about why certain things happened and so on. But I also felt like if I didn't connect to something more than the reality that I'm present to here and like touch, feel and see, it felt to me like eating stale bread without anything on it, and it just didn't feel enough. And so I was looking for like, what am I missing? And I'd had many instances along my journey as a child and other times when in moments of trauma, when I had connected to this thing called this inner voice, which turns out it was the voice of my higher self. Then I later discovered on my journey of self-discovery across, India and many other places, that it's what they call Atman, and that which is that part of you which is higher consciousness, but that's not in the body because it's huge. It's really the real you that you are. And only a subset of that has landed in this human body that we call me, the Jivatman. So those were the things I was discovering alongside of my corporate work. And they came about as a result of kind of having the day job, which I loved and I thrived on. So there's the entrepreneur, the businesswoman, who then went home to herself. I bought my first flat when I was 21. There was this inner work going on, and that led me into traveling. That led me to reading a lot of the ancient texts. And because I already was born in India, I grew up there till I was 10, so I could read, write Hindi, Gujarati, and so therefore Sanskrit. So who I am is a person who's a real blend of the inner and the outer. My mission, I feel, is like to really live life integrated, bringing the material with the inner world into one, in a way where we can truly experience more and more of who we are as a human being. But let's say as a human, but as a being that is also beyond the physical body. And if we can tune into and align with that, then life becomes incredibly sweet and, manifesting, creating the life that is authentic to you, that fulfills you, becomes so interesting. It doesn't always happen straight away, but it does happen. And providing that you are working constantly in asking the question, like, what is appropriate for me? What would my higher self want for me? How can I be true to the part of me that is beyond my mind? Just what I know, beyond that, what is that wanting for me?
Yeah.
So questioning that and then bringing that into the mix, because we have to work in the world. I mean, we can't, there's no cheese down the tunnel of, isolating yourself and, that's kind of abandoning life, as it were. And that doesn't really fulfill either. So that's who I am. I'm actually bringing together the inner and the outer, the business and the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, because I'm really passionate about emotional intelligence. So I'm someone that really believes that we can never have enough skills in life. The more skills we can have about understanding our own nature and understanding our surroundings and other people, it makes life a little bit more easier to navigate.
Tell everyone about your books as well.
The books. So the books are really that discovery, really, is really me looking for the answers to why did certain things happen when I was a child, what was behind that, and, and starting to understand and answer the question of who am I? Who am I as I know myself to be as a being? But then why do I feel like there's a lot more to me? But what is that lot more? So the journey is really going literally physically to places, and talking to gurus and, traveling and finding literally by myself, learning to be by myself, learning to enjoy the company of my own self and not running away from myself. But learning in the sense of things that I've learned from other people. Some of it was validation. I was looking for validation of the things that I had already, because I used to journal since I was 14. I have a lot of stuff that I already had sort of written down beyond what I knew, as in like writing without stopping my hand. And I wanted to know whether that was just some crazy thing that I was doing, or was there any validation from any of our ancient rishis, from the sages back in the day, and so the journey, the books are a journey of self-discovery. They go across continents, but they go across lifetimes, because some of the answers literally lay beyond this lifetime, as I mentioned earlier. The reason I wrote the books is because I realized one of the most powerful things we can ever do is teach ourselves to listen to the voice of our higher self, the part of us that is not the higher consciousness, that's not tainted by our experiences and our past and by our conditioning, because that has everything we could possibly want. The genius, the creativity, answers for what is appropriate, what would really truly fulfill you. So I started doing that inadvertently, not really intending to do that. But then I started to do it consciously. And I realized that the higher self started to speak to me. And now I'm at a stage where I don't need to write. I literally just listen. So a lot of the things in the books are about how non-linear that voice is. The moment you start to ask it questions, it starts to give you answers, and you really listen. you kind of find yourself being taken off to places and doing things that to other people might seem absolutely mental, like crazy. But they make absolute sense. So you get answers like a piece of the jigsaw, but non-linearly. So you one piece over here, one piece over there, another one over here, and then 12 years later, another one over there. But it is an incredible journey to go on, because I believe it's truly the only journey that we are here to be on eventually for all of us. So the books take you into, and the books can be read so they're my journey, but they've been written as if they're your journey, Amit, or anybody who's reading it should be able to relate to it. They find themselves in the story because it's your story as much as it is my story. And so the books can be read and have been read by people purely as this girl who's traveling, to places and asking questions and getting answers in this most incredibly. Sometimes it feels like, when they say, sometimes fact is stranger than fiction. That's how it reads. So it literally reads like this can't be happening, but it is. And so it can be read at that level, or it could be read for the depth of the lessons that are there. And ultimately it can be what it is an energetic transmission that connects you to your higher self, to your true essence, so you can get the answers for yourself. So I'm an author, a coach, a yoga teacher. I'm truly a yogi in how I live my life, and I have this other business part of me. So all of those types of things come into the picture in the books as well.
Beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about relationships. Am I meant to meet one specific person, or could it be that I meet a number of people and I have the option to choose?
That's a really, really good question to get answered for all of us, I think, because not everybody is destined for that one person. Okay. Some people, I do believe that there are people, for example, I feel for myself, that was the reason why I had to do all the depth of the work that I did. So if you have brought yourself into life with this absolute thirst and commitment and a propulsion, the reason you're here is to experience that sacred union, as I call it. And I don't like the word soulmate relationship, because that has so much, other stuff added onto it, which is not how I intend it. But that connection with somebody else, with another person who is truly that other for you, that requires you. So for some people, that's true. For a large number of people, that's not true, I feel. For a large number of people, there may be multiple choices, because of what it is that they want in that relationship, and what they want to, the kind of relationship they will experience. So for not everybody, I feel that the first type of relationship I just mentioned, that sacred union type, that is for, I don't know, 5%, maybe, if you're maybe even between 5 and 10, I don't know, maybe not even that many, maybe even less. But I think for a lot of us, you can have a choice, a good bandwidth of choice. And a lot depends on your values. What values are you espousing? What is it that's really important to you to experience in a relationship? And not everybody wants that depth. Not everybody wants that. Most people do want a certain amount of passion, harmony in a relationship. They do want a part, like somebody that they are. I think most people are looking for a harmonious relationship. That's what I think most people are looking for. They want to share it with their families. They want their friends to be a part of that whole equation. And so I believe, and I've seen in my coaching practice as well, that most people can find a partner without getting themselves into twists, providing you get really clear about your values, what is important to you. And also, if there are things getting in the way that are personal traumas or personality issues, then it's important to have that level of self-awareness that you can bring into it so that you can get that cleared up for yourself. And then you're more present to be engaged in a relationship.
Perfect. Beautiful. Love that answer.
Yeah.
So when I meet someone, if I meet someone and let's say they're a narcissist, am I having some sort of karmic experience with that person? Or is there something for me to learn? What is it? Why is it that so many people are encountering so many challenges with relationships and dating these days? Is it something karmic, or is it just something within us that we're choosing to experience right now in this paradigm of the universe of where we are right now?
Well, I think firstly, I think there are two reasons why we hear more of this type of language, but also people are becoming aware. So people are becoming more self-aware in general, I think, of the dynamics of what it is to be human and types of people. And the second thing is we are expecting more from relationships than perhaps we did back in our parents' day, for example, whether they had an Indian style arranged marriage, or like my husband, who's Belgian, and his parents, who are also Belgium, sort of like with mix of French and Dutch and so on. They had a paradigm that they would be together for a long period of time, and they chose each other, and then they went through the thick and the thin of it, the good and the bad, and they made choices along the way to stay together. I've seen many people around you will have seen do that as well. But today I think we are in a place where we feel we have a lot more choice, and we're not really willing to tolerate the tedium of what that entails. And so people's expectations of relationships are a lot higher. And while once they do get married, they will still go through the good and the bad and the ugly and so on. I think they begin in a different place of expectation to where they began previously. Back in the day, it was perfectly fine. For example, my mum would look at my dad when she met him, and she was blown away by how handsome he was, and and that was like, oh, he looks like a hero, like a star and hero. It's like that was all good enough for her, and she was a cute, beautiful young lady. What was there not to like about her? She was a lawyer. What was not to like about her? And then life unfolded as it did, and threw in a few sprats and mackerels and stuff, and they had to deal with that. We kind of like at a stage now, I think we do have a lot more expectations. So I think people are looking. So in answer to your question, narcissist, is it karmic? I really think that we are just not as tolerant as we used to be of people behaving badly. If you look around, Amit, tell me that there are not narcissists that you have grown up around. I've grown up around people that I would today be called narcissist, right? And what we did with those was according to how you were brought up in the family to deal with, and we dealt with them in those ways. And now today we say, no, thank you, or we engage. And, we become their flying monkey, or we become, some sort of an enabler for that person. And that's the trauma that, that somehow shapes how we relate to these people. So is it karmic? For some people it is. I've seen that for some people, there's definitely, very intense karma there. But that, unless you want to do something about it, you're not going to. You're literally going to enable those people, and you're going to start to work in your own dynamics, weave into whatever that is to serve various individuals in your setup. So if you're not willing to look at the environment that you're operating in, and you're not willing to make the hard choices, you're going to stay there. Yeah? And that was always the case before as well. But people did that a lot more willingly before because they felt they didn't have choice. But today, I think more and more people are finding the courage to call it out and say it as it is, and do something about it, or not. A lot of people don't.
I love what you said. Two things. One is that we're more aware of these traits now, and we're far more able to then call them out, realize it for ourselves that there's something wrong with that person that is not for us. And it could be something more toxic, like they're a narcissist or whatever, but we're able to now actually call out this behavior, whereas before we weren't equipped to do that. So, and we had less choice. And then of course the second thing, the expectations. So I love that. I've had some beautiful conversations with people recently, And I even shared one video with you. In fact, you commented on the video, which was that beautiful AI video. And I loved your comment on it as well, that your comment was basically, obviously, almost like as a rip off of ancient wisdom. It's almost like AI ripping off ancient wisdom and stuff. And yeah, to be honest, it probably is. But it's a beautiful thing, in my opinion, because certain things will speak to some people, certain things won't. So someone could read, a youngster, for example, may read the Upanishads and look at that aspect of our existence and who we are, not be able to relate to it, but they hear it from AI. Suddenly it might spark something in them and, begin that journey of awakening for them, that journey of self-discovery where they want to learn more about who they are, where they came from, what their purpose is here, what they want to do with life, everything, the full spectrum.
So my point about that, Amit, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm really passionate about that.
Yeah.
My point wasn't that we shouldn't language things in different ways, and which is why I wrote the books that I did, because it was to bring out, in fact, the main reason I wrote those books was having done several decades of study of all these very hefty texts, and then coming to my own conclusion about it. And actually the conclusion was correct because it was validated by those texts. The reason I wrote the books was because I wanted to make it more accessible. And I wanted to give it in a way which is really people can utilize in their life today and not be lost in the jargon and the stories and all of that, but they can really, really put it to use instantly now and have it deliver you results today. That was why I wrote the books. However, my point was merely this, and especially in the world of yoga, and I've seen this over the last 2 decades so much, and it is extremely important that we give credit where credit is due. My point isn't that it shouldn't be, that we shouldn't take the text and we should not language it in a different way, but we should look. That book over there that's written by Mark Manson, what's it called? The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Or Michael Singer, okay, who's written The Untethered Soul, or my books for that matter, okay. If I were to take their books and I was to make it my own, I'm telling you, I would be sued my ass off because I did that, because I did not respect their copyright. So not because our rishis were so generous that they gave all of this away and they didn't attribute it to them, that we should not honor our gurus and our teachers. When I started yoga class, I started with Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat, Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. We are appreciating and expressing our gratitude to those who have come before us, okay, and those whose knowledge we are able to use, that we can be here and that we can grow. So my point is really that we have to give credit where credit is due, because Indians and India hasn't demanded that so far. People just they call it like Jain yoga, or they call it like, this is my content. No, it's not your content. It's stuff that we have been granted and we want to attribute credit, and we want to mention, and I got this from this text, or I learned this from such and such. So Western teachers today, or Western authors today, take directly stuff from the Upanishads and the Vedas and wherever else they take it from, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras or whatever, and they never ever mention that's where they got it from. That's what I was referring to. Yeah. And I think with AI and stuff as well, it's really important that we make a stand for attributing.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a hot topic in the AI world right now as well. That is, in fact, it's a massive thing, and there's lots of lawsuits coming out about AI ripping off stuff and not being able to properly credit any source. Yeah. And I think that's something that will be rectified over time. There was a lot of, I think this existed when Facebook was first around, where people were republishing things and, not citing the author and things like that. So I think that will come with time. It's going to take a bit of time. There's going to be a lot of pain in the process for them. But yeah, no, I actually understood where you were coming from, and I get that completely. Let's revert back to the topic. I want to talk about the idea of manifestation, creating, and again, even that word manifestation, it's such a
tainted word.
It's again come from ancient wisdom, and it's I mean, I don't know if you've heard this, right? Obviously, the first popularist term that came out recently was law of attraction, again based on ancient wisdom. Then came manifestation, and then I've heard some really crazy ones since then. There was, I think, cosmic ordering was one that came about. I don't know if you heard the recent one, future casting.
I just recently heard it. I was talking to somebody and I said, I remember having a conversation with somebody, and, we were talking about with a friend, and we were talking about some situation that she was particularly anxious about that was about to come up. So I said, well, what I would do is I would literally focus on that room that you're going to be in with all these people and send in powerful energy into that to clear that space and to really set it up in a way that only harmony can come out of it.
Yeah.
And if you work with angels or whatever, whoever and however you work, all of it, just kind of work with all of that so that future that you're anxious about is actually not the future that will arise in the end. Yeah. So I heard about it. She said, "Oh, that's future casting." I was like, I had no idea what that was. I've been doing that for like decades.
It's just rebranded terminology. And I do talk a lot about this as well, because I think that it is, everyone seems to want to say, oh yeah, I've come up with this new idea. And, it's based on stuff we've been talking about. I mean, like you, I've been in this world for decades, 33 years I've been in this world. And so a very long time. And I grew up reading ancient texts, learning about, our origins, Hinduism, the Gita, the Vedas, everything. That's how I grew up. And then I ended up reading other ancient texts, the Bibles and various versions of the Bibles and so on and so forth. Totally. So that's how I grew up. And a lot of these concepts exist there, but we just love to rebrand them and make it sound cool. And that's not a bad thing. I think that is actually part of our existence. That is part of our growth, our expansion.
Reframing is good.
Reframing. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it absolutely is. So it's interesting. So the video that I did about manifestation, though, has drawn out a lot of people coming to me, messaging me, asking me various questions about this subject. For me, one of the clearest instruction manuals has been the Abraham Hicks books, I think, that really explains it so clearly that it's, very hard to misinterpret in any way, but just in order to give us a guide of how to use that power within us to create our life as we see it, as we would like it to be. And I'm a firm believer that no matter what has happened in the past, I didn't incarnate into this body to have a certain experience or a preordained experience or anything. That may be part of the journey, but it's not all of it. It's not the complete story.
Yeah.
I'm choosing also what I want to experience right now.
You have so much free will, yeah.
Exactly. And then how do I do it then? Because we all are in a position where we are manifesting so many things that we don't want. And, we are creating experiences that we start to say, oh yeah, and here's a good one as well. Here's a common phrase I hear. I had one the other day. It makes me chuckle every time I hear this, but it just, it's one of those things that we all get wrong. I've been trying the law of attraction. It doesn't work for me. I've been trying manifestation. It doesn't work for me. And I end up explaining to them, but look how you've ended that statement. You're saying it doesn't work for me. And this is where your energy is going. So if you're pairing that statement, I've been trying to manifest, but it's not working for me, that energy is not pure. The request, the creation, the thought of creation, the act of manifestation, it's not pure, because there is almost this expectation that something's going to happen in the future. And whereas we want to create this experience now, we want to use our emotional guidance system to feel our way to what we want. And a great question for that is, okay, what do you want? You want a partner in life. Okay, what would it feel like if that was there now? And so I get people to describe the feeling to me. And great, okay, now you're putting yourself in the place of actually now attracting. The feeling is not what's creating the attraction. That's just your guidance system. It's telling you now you're on the right track. Your feelings are guiding you to the thing you want. When you think about something and you feel good, that's telling you, yeah, that's more of what I want in this life. Now, keep yourself in that feeling space. Think more thoughts that are creating that feeling. That will bring that thing to you. So I wanted to get your take on this, though, anyway, from that.
So multiple things come out from listening to the narrative you just shared, right? That when we say, first and foremost, let me get the simple ones out first, which is that when very often, sometimes we are on the journey of creating something that we've never had before. And we don't know what we haven't quite got it clear. We don't have all the answers. Like, I think I want this. This is what I want. I know I want this over there. But then there are other things that show up that are the opposite of that. But I think, what I say to people is like, yes, well, that's really great, because now you know you don't want this.
Yeah.
A lot of the times why we don't get what we want is because we don't know what we don't want. Okay, and when it shows up along the way, we get fixated on the don't want, rather than saying, great, I'm on my way, because now I know I don't want this. Okay, so clear, thank you, universe, not this. Okay, let's carry on. Now refine that vision. So there's a process in the manifestation, in the manifesting process. We have to constantly refine things, and that's something that doesn't get talked about often enough, because we are going to get things we don't want. Why are we getting that, by the way? Because there's a subconscious part of us that has been so galvanized to having that, or believing that, or whatever that is. So all of that stuff is going to get flushed out along the way. If you imagine a glass, and you put the glass has got some silt at the bottom of it, and then there's really clear water at the top. That's how it's been. And you think, oh, this is how life is. But the moment you start saying, I want to manifest something, you're now stirring up that whole thing. So what's at the bottom is going to come up as much as the stuff that's good. So we need to just allow for that and be comfortable with, like, not feel so, oh my God, I must be thinking negative thoughts or whatever. And I think that's part of the other thing about. So we're going to get things we don't want, and they are just indicators on it's like guideposts along the way to say, no, go that way, not this way. And so that's really nice, because it's a refining process. So if you see a manifesting journey as a refinement process until the thing arrives itself, then we are not making ourselves wrong for that. But the other thing is that where she says, Abraham Hicks, they say, if you've got to be on a high flying disc the whole time, like, positive, that can put you in a bind, because what I've seen people do is they shove the feelings that are coming up, the anger or the other stuff that whatever is there to be dealt with in life, they kind of shove it away, and that's what's going to manifest, because more energy goes into putting things away than to actually looking at them and being with them for 2 minutes or a day. And just saying, today, universe, this is where I'm going to stay. I'm really going to feel this intensely. It's not great for you. I'm not feeling great about it, but I'm going to let it out, because I'm not committed to having this be my future. So we let that go. Okay. So that process of letting go is part and parcel of the manifesting journey as well. And if you're only wanting to feel good about things, you're never going to get there, because we are not it is, whether you like it or not, night always comes before day. And at the end of a day, the night will come again. So we are in a dual world. We're in a world of duality. That's just the way it is. What we need to be able to do is kind of get comfortable with that and feel the discomfort of whatever comes up. So I think one of the reasons why people don't manifest is because of that. And the third thing, probably more importantly, is I'll find the term that Abraham Hicks used, but the rishis call it sanskars. And these are the deep, sanskars are basically deeply ingrained behavior patterns that we have that are even subconscious. And they come about through having practiced a certain way of being over a lot of time. Okay, so if you take two children, whether they're twins or otherwise, one can be really like up for life and really happy, and the other one is the absolute opposite. And you go, how is that possible? It came from the same bellies, same privileges, same love, same everything, and yet they have such different ways of being, because they've had a different journey up till that point. And so we do bring with us, and that's the Jivatman aspect of it. That comes encoded as much as it comes in, with free will. It also has certain things that it brings with it to resolve or from past before this particular journey. So let's say, even if you don't go into past lives, let's just say as a child you were bullied. You came to a conclusion about being bullied at some point, and your conclusion was that people are nasty. It's a dog-eat-dog world. If you don't fight for yourself, you're never going to survive. If that's the conclusion you came to, that's something you will practice again and again. So at work, in relationships with family members, you're going to always do that things like, screw them, It's me first. So if that's a sanskar. When you practice it again and again, it's a sanskar. So when it comes to manifesting, there are certain ways of automatic behavior, ways of thinking we have, or choosing, behaving, subconscious. They become so practiced, they become subconscious. And we say that that's my personality. All that is all of these various things that we've practiced long enough again and again that become so hardwired into our being, into our human software, that we call that my personality. Well, there is nothing that can't be shifted if you really want it to be. It just means recognizing that and then choosing to practice something different and a different way of thinking. So I think, what does she call it? I forget the name that they give. It came to me while you were speaking, but it's gone now. But it's part of that, you know. So when you're looking to manifest something, how clear are you? How clear a template are you bringing of yourself, you know, into that journey? And for example, money is a really big one. So money or your honey, okay? It's either relationships or it's money, right? For most people, right? So when it comes to money, why is it that, you know, why is it that lottery winners, more than likely, there's a high percentage that go and lose it all in the first year or very first months, you know? They are not able to hold it in their energetic space. And all that means is that it's not part of their repertoire. It's not part of their paradigm of how they see themselves, how they live, how they think. So they can't hold on to something. Even if you gave somebody, Amit, you paired up two people who couldn't be more right for each other. If they don't come ready for that, with a level of clarity within their own inner being to receive and to give, they're not going to see each other. They're just not going to. It's just going to go like this. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. The one thing I will say that and you mentioned it, and I'm quite emphatic about this. It doesn't say anywhere about being falsely positive, and that's something that I've been hammering into people recently. There is no need, and there is even a term now that people have started using, which is toxic positivity, and I think that that is a very unhealthy thing. And it's not about faking it. It's not about trying to just be positive. All of that is absolute bullshit. That has never been said in any of these books that I've personally read. I don't see it anywhere. What it is them sharing and kind of explaining this template that we have polarized emotions. And when we feel bad, it's not anything bad or anything like that, but it's just giving us an indication that oftentimes we're focused very much on the things we don't want, or, as you mentioned, patterns, habits, sanskars. We're just entrenched in that behavior.
Yeah.
And if we're able to become aware of it, pay attention to it, and understand that feeling, let's say I'm just feeling depressed or whatever, is actually just a practice feeling. It's neither good nor bad. It is just
practice
us in our being. And all we can do is we can re-practice to be in a position to feel something different should we choose to.
Yeah.
Sometimes, do you know what? You said it as well. Sometimes there's days I want to feel miserable and I just want to stew in it for an hour, 2 hours and be okay with it. Because I know as soon as I shut that down, I'll feel worse later on. But even if I just articulate and say to myself, you know what, Amit, you're feeling like crap today. I'm just going to feel like crap. It's fine. It's fine.
It's okay.
I generally don't stay there long.
No.
You know, I'm there for most 24 hours and then I'm
exactly
zoomed away.
Because you've practiced allowing yourself to be in that space for long enough.
Yeah.
You know, you can do that. So yeah, you're right. It is really about that. But I think one of the reasons why things don't shift for people when they're looking to manifest something different is there's not we don't have an experience of what does it feel like that's so different. Okay, that's one of the reasons. And so we have to kind of play with that a little bit, you know, be playful with that, which also they talk about, like play with that. But the other is when it's something that's really subconscious, we don't know we're doing it. Okay, and that's when we need somebody else. But we need somebody else to kind of help guide into what that could be. And sometimes we have people telling us all there are times when people do tell us and criticize us for stuff, and we don't want to take that on board because it doesn't feel nice. Maybe there's some truth to it, maybe there isn't. You have to examine that. And then I think when it's something deep, I really feel there is just no substitute for finding someone who's a committed and experienced guide, listener, somebody who is able to allow you to go into a nook and cranny of yourself in a place that's so uncomfortable, but then has the ability to bring you out of it. And you will then and hold it up in a way that you can see for yourself what you're doing. I mean, I was listening to, I think it was Andrew Huberman, a short from him, and he was talking about some book that he had recently been told about, and it talked about 5 types of people. And one of the types of people was one of the 10% of people, and then there's a whole other group. I thought, gosh, yeah, I really want to read this book. It talks about that 10% of people are just designed. They thrive on creating conflict. They literally go out and create conflict. Honestly, I know people like that. I mean, they don't have to be at the level of presidents or anything. You know, they could be locally, around you in your environment. And I always wondered about this one particular individual in my life. And I would think, why does that person always go and find something to really complain about and pick on somebody and want to create a problem where there really isn't. There's no problem at all, but they want to make it into a problem, and then they engage you into having to justify yourself. So that's something I assure you that person is not aware of as a sanskar that they have. And if you can only get somebody there when they are ready and a request. You can't go and tell someone when. So that's one of the other reasons I think we don't manifest what we would love, what looks good on the outside. But
it's true, because I mentioned this person I was coaching earlier today, and they weren't aware of what they were saying to me until I was able to make them aware. And obviously that comes from experience, and I'm sure you felt this as well when you're as a coach. You're not there to tell people what to do. You're there to explore with them.
Yeah.
And figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Of course, there is an element which is you're at A, you want to get to B. Let's figure out how we can get there. And let's unpick why you're not there as well. Even that can give some of the biggest answers as well. But you're not there to tell them what to do or say, right, you want to earn £1 million. Great, let's go for it. You got to do this, this, and this. It's not quite what coaching is. It's more about that explanation, that journey, going on that journey together, being the mirror, reflecting, saying to people, okay, we see things here as well. Have you ever thought about this? Whether it's attachment styles, whether it's spiritual wounds, whatever it is, we're picking up on the subtle things that we ourselves don't pick up on in our day-to-day. And although there may be people out there who are trying to tell us, but in their own way, it may come across as criticism or just having a go. And so, as it's hard to do this with a loved one because you've already got a program response to these people. Whereas if you go with someone who's an experienced coach, they're able to reflect it back in a way that will awaken you, create that self-awareness where you start to become aware of these patterns, and then you can do something about it. True or false? Definitely.
And what the whole point of the coach is, when somebody comes to a coach, they are a request to be coached.
Exactly.
Whereas when you try to do it when they haven't asked for it, it's going to have consequences.
Absolutely. Okay, let's round off with an important question. I think is a burning one that might be on people's minds, which is about relationships. If they're stuck and struggling to meet someone, what is the best way they can get on the right path to meet the right person for them?
Is it possible to sit down and really do a little bit of work beforehand and get some clarity around yourself? And the question we want to be asking from is not just what would look good on the outside or, what are other people doing that I like or whatever, but to really ask the question is, what would be appropriate for me at the level of the, the things I really am about? What are the things that values are important to me, things that I love to do, and but even on the other side of that, get super clear about what you don't want. Honestly, that is probably half the battle, 75% of the battle. Because on the flip side of not knowing what you don't want is the clue to what you might want. And it's not always one-to-one, but it certainly starts to give you an idea about the direction that you might go in. And I think also don't hesitate to don't be embarrassed about asking for help. mentors are amazing. Like, I wish I had more of them when I was younger. I would have got places faster. And if you've been stuck in a relationship for a long period of time, I was talking to a very, very good friend of mine about this recently. I mean, I absolutely adore this person, right? He's an absolute gem of a person in my life. And we talk about this every now and then. He's single. And I think sometimes people just need to get clear that they're not up for it.
Yeah.
They're not up for it. Stop torturing yourself, or it may be, I'm not up for it now. Maybe I'll be up for it later. And maybe I will, maybe I won't. But along the way, how about just enjoying the journey and making a little game with yourself? Every so often, whether it's once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month, go out, chat to people. Like, I was just coming here on the way here. I didn't know where the street was where we are, and I parked in the car park, and I could have lost my way and gone around the houses a bit. But there was a guy coming along, and I asked him, do you live in this area? He says, yeah, I do. Do you know where the street is? And he says, I do. And he started to explain it to me. He said, I'll tell you what, why don't I just, walk you there, because I'm going that way anyway. And now I'm married for nearly 18 years. So I'm honestly not looking. But I can imagine that we had this great conversation along the way. I can just imagine that 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that would have been the nicest way to just bump into somebody, just to take a risk and ask somebody something,
Yeah.
and not with the intention of flirting or anything, but just chatting to people, talking, engaging. And what is it that we say? Pretend, just do the things which are of the least resistance. Do the things that are the easiest for you to do. Like, can I help you with something? Or comment on somebody's post, or send them a message saying, love that reel of yours, or whatever. Anything, whatever it might be for somebody. It's, I think, take a risk.
And get out there. Don't be afraid to be seen if that's what you want. True?
Absolutely.
100%. So, as a rising superstar on social
As are
media...
you.
You're flying at the moment. Where can people reach you? Where can they get your books?
My books are on Amazon, and they're also on my website. And we do meditations, 12 meditations that go with the books, which are particularly special because, it means that you can go and meditate in Sage Vasishta's cave off the Ganges without going there, or you can go swim with the dolphins without having to go to Hawaii, in the Pacific Ocean to do that. That's on my website, smitajoshi.com. And then my socials are Smita Joshi 108 on Instagram and TikTok. And YouTube channel, just put me in Google, I think you'll come out. It's the Self-Discovery channel.
Nice. Love it.
I'd love to hear from people. Love to know whether any of this has resonated, whether it's, has it resonated?
And the beautiful thing I forgot to mention at the beginning, it's your second time on the podcast. I think you're my first repeat guest, actually. Might be the second, I can't remember. But
yeah, we did this before.
Yeah, we did, in the very early stages before it was pre-studio podcasts. So it's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved it. I feel like we could go in a million different directions further still to this. So we'll definitely have a follow-up part to this as well. So I really appreciate it. Please do reach out to Smita, connect with her, follow her on socials, and ask her any questions as well. She's a fountain and a waterfall of information.
And we have free gifts on my website too, meditations and chapters of the books and stuff. And if anybody wants to, I tell you what, how about this? The first 3 people that get in touch with me, I will send you a gift code, and you can download 2 digital products, of which one of them can have 12 meditations and another one can have an album, which is 3 meditations. So how about we do that? So
beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, get in touch in any way you can.
Perfect. Thank you again.
And just say you saw me on his podcast and you made it to the end.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much for today as well. By the way, you look gorgeous today.
Thank you so much. As do you. You always
you're just saying that. There we go, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you on the next episode.